right? But before that, I thought, okay, I'll start with what are the challenges customers are facing in OCI once they have their production and DR workloads. And then I'll go through a high-level overview of the service and what is the business benefits of the service. And then we'll talk about the technical concepts. I know like we have close to 50 minutes, right? But I'll just touch upon at high level. But of course, if we can do deep dive session in future also. And I'll end up with a quick demo, how you can use the service. And also I'll share a bunch of resources which you can try it after the call. Okay, just quick checkup, right? So I'm going to assume like everyone has a basic idea of OCI, right? At least associate level, because I'm going to talk about concept primarily. I'm assuming like the audience is having a decent amount of idea about OCI, right? Just a quick heads up. Right? So disaster recovery challenges. Why I put this slide, right? Again, this is completely the OCA regions, but there are a couple of two things which is related to DR. That's why I thought to show you. If you notice, right, like again, like OCA regions is huge. Like in terms currently we have 66 OCA regions, and also a lot of regions are coming up. But there are two aspects which you can look out, right? So when you see a black one like DR, and there's another one, the white one, which DR, right? So what this means, the Oracle Cloud, the vision is to have uh, two regions within a same country or within the border, right? So example, if you see in India, we have two regions, one in Mumbai, one in Hyderabad. Similarly, if you see in UAE, we have one region in Dubai and one region in Abu Dhabi. So currently, I know in KSA we have one region in Jeddah, but there are two more regions coming up shortly, right? So the idea is, customers are looking to have production and DR region within the same country, right? So that's the focus our enterprise customers are looking for. So Oracle Cloud is helping to achieve that, right? So our focus is always to provide two regions within the same border or same country, and in case if it is not possible, there are other regions available within the same commercial region, right? So example, if you see, right, like again, like if you are talking out today, we have one region in KSA, right? But you have close to by in UAE, like Jeddah, sorry, Abu Dhabi and Dubai, right? So you always have another DR region which is close to your which is close to your primary region, right? So that's the direction Oracle is focusing on. But again, like this map is to just give a broader perspective of how many OCA regions we have and what also coming up in future. Okay, so let me jump into in terms of how OCA is addressing the DR challenges, right? So the main thing you could consider is like if you are migrating from on-prem to cloud, right? Like OCA has all the necessary, uh, uh, the prerequisite you can consider, right? So the first one is in terms of cost. If you compare to other clouds, OCI is much cheaper. Like again, I'm not just tracking it randomly. You can check out the costing calculator and other things, right? When comparing to AWS or Azure, OCI is much cheaper in terms of the service as well as the other networking costs. And the second thing is it will provide a like-by-like architecture service, right? So example, if you are running an Exadata database in on-prem, then you have exact like-by-like services available in OCI, right? Which other cloud doesn't provide, right? So you have options like XSES, XSEC, right? So you have all those necessary like-by-like architecture available in cloud. And the third thing which I mentioned, right? Like we provide both production and DR region within the same country, right? So to meet various compliance reasons and all the regulatory things, right? So Oracle Cloud is always focusing on to help customers to have both production and DR within the same system region. Okay, so let's assume once you have everything in OCI, right? Like then the primary question will come is in terms like is let's say if you want to do a switchover, right, from one region to another region, or in case of some catastrophic things happen, right, then how you can do a failover, right? So these are some of the orchestration challenges we see a lot of customers. The first thing is complexity, right? So let's assume you have huge amount of application, right? Like any app, any database feature you can think of. But let's say if you want to recover it quickly, right, then you will have a large kind of processes which you need to go through either a manual or maybe a semi-automated process, right? which will directly relate in terms of your RTO, right? So complex business systems are tricky to recover quickly, right? And the second thing is testing, right? So you, in case if you don't do a proper testing, then during an actual failure, right, then you'll not know whether your DR can start accepting the traffic or it can do a seamless failure, right? So always testing is a key challenge. And second, third thing is skills and expertise, right? Because again, like disaster recovery is something you're doing it at any time, right? It can be on a weekend or you cannot expect when it will happen, right? So having a necessary skills and expertise and having the right people during that time will always challenge, right? And the fourth one is the lot of customers have to abide their compliance, right? So example for auditing and other requirements, then they have to do a DR drill or something every 6 months or 3 months. I'm just telling as a number, but it totally depends on the customer requirements. Then if you rely on manual process, right, then you will not be able to satisfy the customer auditing requirements, right, because you don't have a proper documentation or you do not have necessary logs to show them, right? So these are some of the again these are something which we hear it from our customers, right? So they are told once they move into OCI, right, with production and DR, then if they want to do a switchover or are actually failure, right, they mention these are some of the common challenges they see in regular times. And this is one of our customer quote, right? So they mentioned, hey, disaster has happened, but I don't have enough people to recover all my critical system, right? So you can think of if it is it's an enterprise customer, right? Then they might be talking about tens of applications, right? But assuming if sudden disaster happens, they may not be having all the people lined up to do the recovery process quickly, right? So that is where full stack DR helps. So I just given a quick, a precursor of why and what kind of challenges are customers facing and how full stack DR will help you to overcome those challenges. So in nutshell, what the service does, it's a primarily an orchestration service, right? I just want to make that clear again in the topic also. I mentioned it out. The full stack DR as of today, it helps to do the primarily the orchestration layer. So assuming if you've deployed your app and your app or your database, everything in OCI, right? In production and DR, depending on your topology, according to your RTO and RTO requirements, then full stack DR can help you to do the recovery process from a single pane of glass with a single click of a button. Right. So it's a fully managed service available only is it within OCI as of today. Right. You can deploy your DR either in availability domains or across OCI regions. Again, like I just want to call it out. This service currently supports only within the OCI, right? So we expect to have both your production, the DR available within the OCI regions, right? Because we get a lot of questions. Hey, I have my primary in my on-prem and we have our DR workloads in OCI. Or else like I have my primary in OCI, I have my DR in let's say Azure or AWS, right? So the support of that kind of a configuration or setup will be coming up in future. But as of today, if you want to use this service, it is mandatory to have your production and the DR workloads within the OCI. Okay. So so we so we have a construct called protection group, which I'll again show in my next subsequent slides. So as a customer, right, like once you have your respective application, then you are expected to create a protection group and then organize that into the protection group in the OCI, right? And then once you do that by using the full stack DR, you can just do the recovery process with a single click of a button, right? And also we have a framework which we call as pre-checks, right, which I'll show in my demo. So pre-checks will help you to give more confidence, right? So without actually executing the plan, you can run the pre-checks as many as time you want so that you get confident of whether my plan will run successfully when the plan is getting executed. And also we have a new feature, what we call as a DR drill plan, right? So I'll talk about it in more details, but in short, right, it helps you to do the validation of your entire stack without touching the production, right? So this is something really exciting. We see a lot of customers are regularly doing for DR testing. So they can take advantage of using the DR drill plan to achieve those use cases. Okay, so again, like the members, maybe you can just consider as of now. I will talk about like what this relates, but in short, you can add any of these services that you use in OCI directly as a member within the full stack DR protection groups. Right, we support the compute, we support all the storage services like block, file, and then Object is coming up soon. Then we support all the past database, Oracle database like Exadata CS, Base2B, autonomous transaction processing, and data warehouse for serverless. But dedicated is also coming up soon. And we also support load balancer from a networking. And I did mention asterisks here, right? So the support for OK is not yet there, but it is coming up pretty soon this year, right? So with this, I'll just move on to some of the benefits, right? So I just showed you like what the service does. But let's say if you're a CTO or I mean a decision maker, right? Like they might be asking, okay, why I need to use this service plan? So the first thing is it provides a single pane of glass experience, right? So again, you could visualize like if you're recurring entire application, then you are talking about things like app, database, compute, storage, whatever you can think of, which comprises of those stuff, right? So generally, customer will go through a kind of a run book or a Word document to do the recovery process by engaging various administrators, right? But if you convert that into the full stack DR plan, then all those operations, like from execution, pre-checks, monitoring, can be done from a single pane of glass, right? So this completely normalizes the way how you do your current DR orchestration. So it provides a single pane of glass experience. And the second point is DR at scale. So when we speak to customer, right, what they say, right, "Hey, I'm not just recovering my EBS system. I'm not recovering my PeopleSoft. I will be recovering tons of application at one go, right? So assuming if you create all these plans upfront and keep it ready, then you could recover your systems in parallel. So it provides a great flexibility of recovering your systems at parallel, which will directly improve your recovery time objective of overall business systems. The third one is this is super easy to run, right? I'll show you, let's say, even if you are not an expert in OCI, right? Assuming if you have necessary access, you can just click one button in console, or you can just use a simple API call to execute the plan, right? So this is really easy to use. And we also provide a validation, which I talk about in pre-checks, right? So this is really helpful when you want to execute a plan. Before that, you can run a validation of your overall plan. And this service is highly flexible, right? So let's say if you already have an existing DR process, you don't need to change anything. Rather than that, you are just converting the manual process into an automated process, right? So you can just keep your existing process, then you can take advantage of using into the service. And we heard from a lot of our customers, they already use a lot of scripts or maybe OCI functions to do the DR process. So if you have that kind of thing, right, you can directly integrate with our service. So you don't need to discard any of your existing efforts which you're already doing. You can just simply plug in those components within our service, right? And let's say if the customer doesn't have any DR process, right, then you can use our service to start with, and then you can see how that can be fitted within our services. Okay. So the last one in terms of benefits, again, these are some of the industry terminologies, right? The bottom line is full stack DR is highly flexible, right? So you can deploy in any architecture according to your business requirements and your application to satisfy your RTO and RPO requirements. You can use a core VMDR or a pilot light, warm standby, hot standby, any topology which you are deployed for your production and DR that can be integrated with full stack. So we have some intelligent models, what we call as built-in plan groups, which you can see in my demo. So we automatically pre-populate bunch of steps for you, depending on the members which you added to our service, right? So we help you to reduce a lot of steps in terms of recovering all the components. And the third one, again, this is common for all the OCA service, so you could use the console to create the protection groups and all the plans. But we always recommend to use automation services like CLI or Terraform, right? So that you can do it at scale, right? Even for creating all the resources relevant to the full stack AI. And the last one is super important, right? This service is a fully managed service, right? So let's say if you go ahead and use the service, then in terms of usability, right, this is really easy and easy to adopt, right? So we don't, yeah, sorry. Yeah. So you don't need to basically run any VMs or something to use the service, right? So being it's a fully managed service, this is really easy to get started for using the service. Okay, so with this, I will jump on to the technical concepts, right? Let me see any questions in the chat. Okay, sure. So we'll start with some of the concepts, right? Again, as I mentioned, uh, because of the time, right, I'm just going to go at high level, but again, but we have a lot of tutorials, videos, which you can watch at your own time. But I just want to start with a couple of two key terminologies. I'm sure you'll be aware about these two things, right? If not, I'll just quickly tell you. RPO is basically like how much data loss you can afford, right? So basically, it completely depends on your backup or the replication strategies you follow. That determines your RPO. And RTO is a goal which excuse the time, like how quickly you can recover your system, right? So these are the two common keywords which you can always rely, I mean, talk about when we are talking about a disaster recovery, right? So what this relates in terms of full stack DR, right? The short answer is the full stack DR doesn't have a direct control of controlling both values, right? Because we as a full stack data service, right? We you can consider as an overlay service, right? We rely on all the core OCI replication technologies like data guard, block storage, file storage, right? So it totally depends on how you configure the replication for your specific service. Depending on that, you can arrive at the RPO of your application. And RTO is like how quickly you can recover, right? So once you integrate within our service, then you can run the plan. But by that, you will be able to see how much time it takes to you recover your overall business system. But again, for that also, right, we just go ahead and execute the APIs and then wait for that to complete. So full stack DR will provide a guidelines of how much time it takes, but we don't have a direct control in terms of controlling the RTO. Okay, so let's go through the concepts, right? So again, these are some of the slides that I just talk about directly, like what are the core concepts which is available within the OCI. So we have a concept called protection group. This is the core OCI resource for the full stack here, right? So you could consider as a logical container, right, which you need to create when you start using your service, right? So the protection group is basically you can align respective to your application, right? So the first thing what you need to do is create two protection groups, right? One for your primary region and one for your DR region, right? So let's assume your primary region is Dubai and your DR region is Abu Dhabi. Then you need to create two protection groups, one in Dubai and one in Abu Dhabi. And then you need to associate the roles to the service stating which is my production and which is my DM, right? So that's the first thing you need to create. And once you create the protection groups and associate, then you could add the members to the protection group, right? So the members will tell the service which are the components which is part of my business system, right? So we currently support all the members which I showed in my slide, right? So from an Oracle database, you could add a database running from a base DB or a database running from an XSES or a database which is autonomous database service. And similarly, if you're running your compute, I mean your applications on a compute virtual machine, you could add, and it can also support a dedicated virtual machine host as well. And we also support storage, right? So example, if you're leveraging the boot and block volume replication, then you could add as a volume group as a member. And we also recently started supporting file storage. I just highlighted as a new feature, right? This is something we recently announced. So you could add a file storage service as well as a member to the full stack data protection. And finally, we also support load balancer, right? So if you use a standard app load balancer or a network load balancer, that can also be added to the DR protection group as well. Okay, so once you create the protection group and then add the members, the next thing is a plan, right? So basically, the plan is you could relate as a runbook, right? So the plan, we support multiple plan types, right? So currently we support four plan types. One is switchover, and then the second one is failover, and the third one is DR drill. So I'll just quickly tell you what are the differences between all three plans, right? The switchover is intended for a planned transition, right? So example, your use case is to shut down everything in primary and then transition all the services to standby, then you could create a switchover plan, right? So this will be ideally useful for customers. Okay, I want to run my business system for a week in a new DR, and then I want to switch it back, right? So if that is the case, then you could use switchover. The failover is intended for recovering your standby, right? So let's say my primary region is down for some reason, or maybe some flood, or whatever reason, your primary region applications or your virtual machines, your databases are not accessible, then you could leverage the failover plan type, right? So the idea is to how quickly you can recover a system at the standby region or the DR region. And the third type, which I mentioned, is a new plan type which we started supporting, what we call the DR triple. So, right, so the name suggests this is intended for doing any kind of a mock testing, right? So you could do a complete dry run of your application without touching the production stack, right? So we internally use features like snapshot standby for database, refreshable clone for database. So without touching your production, you can completely create your application accessibility isolated in the standby region. Once this is done, then you can tear it down or go back to the original state, right? So this is really useful for customers who want to do uh, to accommodate their compliance reasons, right? Like if they want to do mock testing every month or every quarter, right? Then they can take advantage of DR plans. Okay, so I talked about the plan types, and this is how the plan looks like. So again, when I show in the demo, it should be much clearer, but you could consider like when you create a plan, right? We create three things, right? The first thing is pre-checks, which I mentioned. Uh, then based on the members you add, we automatically create a bunch of built-in plan groups, right? So here you see in this example, I have a task for stopping compute, launching compute, doing a switchover database. So all these are created by the service automatically, right? So these are the built-in modules I talked about. And the third one, what we call the user-defined, right? So what this user-defined relates in this service is like when I mentioned about the members, right? Based on the members you add, the service understands and provide the recovery steps for you, right? But let's assume you need to do something beyond the members what you add, then you could leverage the user-defined group, right? So example, if you have an e-business application, virtual machine, you have a database, you have a load balancer, then you full stack DR doesn't understand what applications which are running in a virtual machine, right? So what you need to do is create user-defined groups and then add the recovery steps for related to e-business suite, right? So similarly, if you are leveraging a third-party application, then you need to create user-defined groups and then start adding the necessary steps which needs to be related to your application, right? So user-defined groups, you can either use your custom scripts or also we have integration with functions, right? So the only thing we expect is to automate your recovery steps for you. So you could leverage a script or a function which can be called out in the user-defined plan. Again, I will show it in the demo, which will be much, easy to visualize. But for as of now, you could consider any services, anything which you don't directly add as a member, then you could add as a user-defined plan group, and that can be used to interact with those services. Okay, so I mentioned about the association, right? So this is how it looks like, right? So we have two protection groups, right? So in my example, it is Ashburn is my primary, and Chicago is my DR protection group. So I just need to create the protection group, add the members, and then associate the roles, right? And then the next step, as I showed in my slide, you need to create the plans. Right? So there are multiple plans type, as I mentioned, right? Like we have switchover plans, failover plan, re-address plans. Once you add the members, then you could create the plan types accordingly. And one thing to highlight here is we allow to create plans only in the DR protection group region. The reason is, right, being our service is regional service, right? Example, if your primary region goes down, then there is no reason, logic of using the full stack DR service itself, right? So you cannot use our service if the plan is available in the primary. Right? So that's why we have designed our service in such a way. We always allow you to create the plans only in the DR region, right? So when you try to create a plan in the production group which has a primary role, you will get an error. The reason is the service has been designed to the cater such requirements which I mentioned. Okay, so these are some of the new features, right, which I mentioned. So we recently started supporting DR drill plans, and then you could add a load balancer as a member, and also you could add a file storage as a member. And we also have a new feature for block volumes for accommodating the non-moving instance category. Right. So again, I could do a deep dive for the new features in future, but for this session, I'm just telling what are the new feature which we recently released with the full stack service. Okay, so let's spend some time on demo, right? Because this will be really interesting to see, right? Whatever I spoke to you, like how you could rely full stack DR to automate a recovery process, right? And also I'll share some of the resources which you can use it for your reading or additional purposes. So this is an architecture again. So we have this lab available in Live Lab, right? Again, if you're not aware about Live Labs, right? Oracle Live Lab is the platform where you can use it to get hands-on with all the Oracle products like database, OCI, all the services, right? So I've authored a Live Lab for to get hands-on with the full stack DS service, right? So this is a sample application, what we call as new shop in OCI, right? We primarily use this sample application to demo various services. So it's a simple e-commerce CAD product website, which has a three-tier application. So we have two regions, right? One is Ashburn and Phoenix, right? So in terms of the deployment, right? What I have, which is important to key thing to understand is I'm using a topology called Pole VM DR, right? So if you notice, I have my virtual machines only in the primary region. I don't have the VMs running in my DR region, right? So that's a important thing to note. And then from a database perspective, again, this virtual machines, this will be hosting my application, right? So I will have my custom application, which is MuShop running in this virtual machine. And from the DB perspective, I have my autonomous database where I have my autonomous data guard configured as a replication to the DR region. And then for replicating my virtual machine, I'm leveraging the block storage. Right? So you need to configure as a volume group in the service. And then I'm relying the block storage replication feature to replicate my boot and block volumes from these two compute instances to those two, to the DR region, right? And also I have a bunch of object storage buckets, which I'm relying the object storage application, right? And also I have a load balancer, right? So the load balancer will be used to serve the traffic for the application. So the load balancer will have a backend cert, and then the backend server will be these two VMs. So I already pre-created the load balancer and all the stuff here, right? So what I'm going to do in this demo is, let's assume there is something happened wrong in the primary region, right? Someone has deleted all the virtual machines. I'm just telling as a hypothetical scenario. Or let's assume like your primary region got busted, right? Like your virtual machine, your AD is gone, or something happened. Then you like to quickly recover your application into the new primary region, which is the DR region, is the Phoenix, right? So I'll show you the steps, like what you need to do, right? Again, this is a lab which will take itself 2 hours to complete the lab. But I'll just show you what you need to do and how quickly you can use full stack DR to recover this application, right? Again, this is a sample application, but imagine it can be any complex application, right? Like e-business suite or PeopleSoft or any application. Assuming if you create a plan and have it ready, then you could use full stack DR service to recover your service. Okay, I will come back to this best practices slide maybe once we complete the demo, right? Because this will be really helpful, right? Because uh, being the service is still relatively new, right? Because there are a lot of customers who are not using the best practices, but I just thought to show this to you. So this you could take care of these when you plan to implement for your customers, right? So I'll just come back to the slide once I complete the demo. So let me go to the demo. Okay. So again, like if you want to search this live lab, right? Like just go to Google and say full stack DR live labs, right? So you'll get the first one as this one, right? So you could just click this link, then you can click start button, right? So once you click that, you get an option to run on your own tenancy. So you get step-by-step guidelines like how you could replicate the same setup in your tenancy, and then how you need to prepare all the steps for it, right? So let me do a couple of things, right, before directly going to the OCA console. So I'll just quickly show you how to create protection group, right? Again, this is really easy, but what I'm not going to spend time, right? How to prepare your environments, because that will take a lot of time to explain. but I have step-by-step instructions like how to do it. But assuming if you create all the environments, right, which I showed you, right, as per the architecture, then you can directly jump into the protection group creation status, which I'm going to show you, right? So the first thing, as I mentioned, we need to create protection groups for this deployment architecture. So creating protection group is really easy. It being is a fully managed service. You can just navigate to full stack DR from migration to disaster. So this is a place where you can land up into the service, right? Go to the hamburger menu, select migration and disaster recovery, and click DR protection, right? So if you click this, you'll land up into this page, right? So what I have two tabs. Ashburn is my primary, Phoenix is my standard, right? So creating protection group is super easy, right? So you can click create protection group. So what we ask is we'll ask a name, we'll ask a compartment, and we ask for an object storage bucket because all the planned execution logs which we generate as part of this DR operation, we need to store. So we ask for an object store. That's it, right? So we just ask this couple of information, and once it is provided, you can just hit create, right? So for the first step, as I showed in my slides, you need to create two protection groups. So I already created, right? We can see new shop Ashburn and then new shop Phoenix. So I've just created the two protection groups, right? And once it is done, we need to associate them, right? So that's what, uh, again, like I have, let's say another path, right? App IAD and then app Phoenix here. So in terms of associating, what you need to do is you can just click this button and save the role, right? So I'm saying this is my primary region role. And once you do that, it will ask you the peer region. So for my example, I need to select Phoenix, and then it will ask you the protection group running in the Phoenix, right? Again, once you provide this information, you can just hit associate. That's it. It will take a minute to show the roles, right? Let me show an existing pair, right? So for this new shop demo, I already have my protection group and it is showing as a role as primary. And similarly, I have a role as standalone, right? So this is the first thing you need to do, which I have step by step how to do here. So you could refer this lab in case if you want to replicate it. Okay. And once we're done that, and the next step would be adding the members, right? So in my architecture, right, let me go back to here. Right? So you can see here what we have in terms of components, right? So in primary, I have two virtual machines, right? And then I have my autonomous database, right? And then I have my load balancer. And since we are leveraging the moving instance, which is basically a whole VMDR, we're leveraging the block storage replication. So we need to create a block storage polling pool across the region, right? So I'll be adding all these members, the virtual machine, the volume group, autonomous database, load balancer into the primary protection group region. And in standby, I don't have virtual machine, so I don't need to add a virtual machine there. So I need to add the autonomous database, right? This is the data guard autonomous database. So I need to add the data guard database as a member. And since we have load balancer, I also need to add the load balancer, right? So I'll be adding all this bunch of members. But again, to save time, I already added, but I will show you how you can add a member, right? So in this protection group, you can navigate to a section called members, right? I just told you what are the members I added, right? So I added an autonomous database. I've added two both compute instances. I've added the respective volume group and also added the load balancer. Similarly, I'll just show you the members in the DR region, which is Phoenix, right? So I added my autonomous data guard member and also I've added the load balancer. But I'll just spend a minute to tell you how quickly you can add a member, right? So adding a member is again, it's just click of a button. So you can click here, add a member. Once you select, it'll ask you the resource type. Right? So let's assume you want to add an autonomous database, then automatically it will come up here. Since I've already added, I don't have any other members to add. So that's why it is not showing here. Let's assume if my member is not added, then it will pop up here, then you can easily add. Similarly, you could add other member types as well. So let me show one thing in compute, which is interesting, right? So we have two types of member in compute. One is called moving instance, another is non-moving instance, right? So for this demo purpose, I am leveraging the cold VMDR, right? So which means I have virtual machines only in my primary region. I don't have the virtual machines in the DR region, right? So if that is the use case, you could select the moving instance, right? But in case if you are leveraging an active passive topology, right? So let me go back to this demo, right? Architecture. Let's say, let me pretend like this is an e-business suite, right? So generally e-business suite customers will always pre-provision the virtual machine, right? So you already have a virtual machine created. So if that is the topology, then you could say a non-moving instance, right? So this is the difference between a moving instance and a non-moving instance. So in short, if you're leveraging an active passive topology, you need to select non-moving instance. Or else if you are leveraging a cold VM or a pilot light, right, then you need to select the moving instance, right? So this is the difference between the both these topology, right? So now I've added the members in both primary and the standby region, right? So the next step is to create the plan, right? So because now I have told the service, hey, this is my members. Then the next step would be creating the plan, right? So again, I have all the documentation here, how to create. So let me go ahead and show you how you can create a plan, right? So let me give a switchover plan type. And again, you can select the plan type, whatever plan you want. Okay, so then you can hit create. Okay, again, I just wanted to show this error I did mention in my slides, we don't allow you to create a plan in case if the primary, if the database, sorry, if the protection group has a primary role. So it tells you to create a plan in the peer or a standby region, right? So we don't allow you to create a plan in the primary protection group feature. Okay, so I already pre-created plans, right? But again, creating the plans is super easy, right? So you can give a name. Sorry, can you mute yourself? Okay. Yeah, so you can just give a name and then select a plan type, and then you can just create a plan. So I just created all the plan types upfront to save time, right? So what I did, I created a switchover plan, I created a failover plan, and also I created a duty plan, right? So this is how a plan will look like once you create. And so uh, let me go through this, right? So I also customized a couple of steps which I'll show you. But the one thing to start look at is we create the built-in pre-checks, right? So this is the plan pre-check which I mentioned about. So every plan type you create will have a built-in pre-checks. Right? And apart from that, we generate all these built-in plan groups automatically for you, right? So you can see bunch of plan groups which the service created automatically based on the member type, right? So for this example, since we added load balancer, compute, autonomous, we thought these are the recovery steps which is required to do the recovery, right? So we created a step for updating the load balancer, stopping the compute, switching the volume group, switching the autonomous database. So these are the things which we do in the primary region. And once the task is done in the primary region, we automatically launch the compute instance. Then we update the load balancer, and then we do all the necessary housekeeping tasks. And beyond that, I also customize this plan with a couple of user-defined plans, right? So for this example, I want to restart my application, and also I want to do a couple of database valid rotation scripts, right? So for that, what I can do is, as I mentioned, we have an option to create a custom group, right? That's what I did here. So once you do this, we'll get an option to select a step, right? So you can provide a step name, and then you can use either a local script or a function, right? So for this example, let me show this to you. I've just used a local script for doing the task, right? So what I have here is I have a target instance, right, which is my application VM, and I just provided this script, which is basically a simple shell script, which rotates the wallet. It basically restores the wallet into the VM, right? So again, this is completely my flexibility. I'm just comfortable with shell script, but if you are comfortable with Python or any script, right, as long as that script can locally work, you could leverage that scripts and you can add that functionality here, right? Or else, if you are comfortable using functions, you can use a function option, right? So function is serverless function available in OCI. So you could leverage the function as well if you're comfortable of doing that. But for this example, I'm leveraging sample scripts using shell script, and then I'm using a run command functionality to execute the scripts, right? So let me show a few more things, right? So if you see here, you can reorder the groups, right? So this is what I did, right? So when I added the group, I want to restore the database right after I'm updating the load balancer. But let's say if you want to move this up, you can do this, right? So the service provides a complete flexibility of adding the group, plan group, wherever you want to do, right? Similarly, you could reorder accordingly to your requirements. So let's assume I have reordered everything. My plan is ready to go. Then I could run a pre-check, right? So you can come here and just save pre-checks. So if you click pre-checks, it will start executing the plan without actually going and doing the running the plan. We do all the necessary pre-checks, right? For example, we do an autonomous database pre-checks, and we do a launching compute pre-checks. And for the scripts which we use, right, we'll make sure all the scripts are accessible, whether those scripts have necessary permission to go ahead and execute, right? So this is basically, as I mentioned, you could consider as a precursor of actually executing your plan, right? So now you can see it is showing us queue. Within few seconds, what will happen? It will go into e-commerce, right? So I just ran a couple of pre-checks before the call, right? So it will just take maybe a couple of minutes to complete. But the important thing to understand is all the pre-checks are showing us succeeded, right? So this gives you a confidence of having the plan, doing all the necessary pre-checks before going ahead and execute. Okay. Okay, so let's do another thing. So let me show while this is running, right? I'll also show you a difference between a failover plan, right? So what I showed you is a switchover plan. But if you notice a failover plan, right? As I mentioned, right, the failover plan is intended like how quickly you can bring your application, right? So we don't do any task in the primary region. So we automatically fail over the fan groups, we'll fail over the autonomous database, we'll launch the compute instance and update the load. So this will be really useful for doing the failure. Okay. And also mentioned about the drill plan, right? The drill plan again, it will look something similar to failure plan, but the advantage of the drill plan is once you complete your drill, you could stop the drill so that we terminate all the resources which you create during the start drill plan, right? So that's the beauty of the drill, right? So I just want to show you the difference between what is a switchover plan type looks like, what is a failover plan looks like, what is a drill plan looks like. So now you see here the plan execution of the pre-checks has completed, right? So let's assume I just want to perform a switchover now, right? So what you can do here, go to the plan, select the plan type, switchover, and you can just come here and execute a plan, right? So once it is done, then it will start performing all the necessary steps for you in an automated fashion, right? So this is the one I want to show you to, right? So let's assume if you have a recovery steps in an Excel run book or a Word document, right? Then ideally, as I mentioned, you need to leverage all the administrator, right? So let's assume you ask your compute team or your OS team or your application team to stop your compute. So there is someone need to do this task, right? Then for switching and volume group, you may need a storage administrator to do this task for you. And then for switching an autonomous database, you might need a DTA to do this task, right? But if you translate that into a plan like this, then and a simple administrator who has this access to execute this plan can just come and run this plan, right? So that's the transformation or an advantage we are looking for, right? So all this task can be done from a single pane of glass, and all these things can be executed from a single administrator to perform this plan, right? Again, so going back to this place here, so this will take some time, right? Because each step has to do the necessary task, right? So example, now this plan is going in and updating the load balancer. And once this is done, then it will just seamlessly go on to the next steps accordingly, right? So a couple of things which I can show here. So this is a plan group, right? So, but if you notice here, we have a couple of steps. So each plan group will run serially, but the steps inside the plan group will run parallel, right? So if you notice here, for this example, I have only 2 compute, right? But let's assume I have 10 compute or 15 compute instance. All this recovery task will happen parallel, right? So that's the beauty of this. It will help you to do the improve your recovery time objective as well, right? But we don't do the plan groups serially, parallelly. So we wait for this recovery step to complete before moving on to the switchover plan groups, right? So it will go through in a serial manner from a plan group perspective, but the steps inside the plan group will happen parallelly, right? So that's the difference. Again, this will take 30 minutes based on our experience, so I don't want to wait for to show you, but again, like once this is done, right, you could easily see your recovery process happening.
Shukriya.
And also you can see the logs, right? Again, this is the observability part I mentioned, right? You could simply view the log and download the log, right? So let's assume if something failed, you can fix from the backend and you can retry it. So you can get all the options to perform from a single pane of glass. Again, maybe I rushed it a bit in terms of time, but this link has all the details, how you can set it up, right? How you can create a protection group, even how you can set up this Mu shop, right? So Mu shop, I have a resource manager, which is used by Terraform. So you could exactly replicate the same thing in your own device. And so I have all these steps here, which you can do it in your own time. Okay, let's go back to the slide and then we'll conclude it here, right? So in terms of best practices, right, what the main thing is, since we interact with multiple OCI services, right, the first thing is the IAM policies is super important, right? Because we get a lot of issues. Okay, my plan is not properly working, my pre-checks is failing, right? If you don't provide proper IAM policies, your plans will not run successfully, right? So I would recommend you to refer to this blog where I've mentioned a step-by-step document of what kind of policies you need to provide based on the service which you're interacting with the full stack here. And the second thing is user-defined groups, right? Since we rely on run command from the OCI compute, there is a bunch of prerequisites you need to take care. Again, there is a document which you can follow. So if you take care of this upfront, then your user-defined scripts will not have any issues while you execute, right? So again, this is a common, more commonly raised issue from our customers. So we always tell them to use this tutorial to take care of all the prerequisites, and then you use the runtime. Okay. And the third one is a really an important issue which a lot of customers are facing right today. So when you try to add a member to an existing plan, right, we basically delete the plan again, right? That's a painful thing we know. So we are currently working on to provide a functionality to refresh the plan automatically before deleting, right? So if you implement today, right, we recommend to have your plan in a command line, right? So that in case if there is a requirement to delete the plan, sorry, to re-add a member or something, right? You could quickly recreate the plan rather than going it through console, right? So we always recommend to take a plan in a CLI so that you can recreate it quickly. Okay. And this is really important, right? The second thing, since we allow you to create the plan only in the standby region, uh, you do a switchover, right? And then you recreate the plan in the new primary region, right? So during the initial planning stage itself, right? Because you don't want to wait for an outage or something to create a plan. So as part of the best practices, during the initial setup itself, create the plans in both regions, and then you could use depending on your requirement. And the last one is run regular pre-checks, right? So you could use automation tools, right? Right. So you can put a pre-check CLI script and schedule it to through cron to get a notification. Right. So let's assume like every day as an OCI administrator, you get a pre-check report morning at 6 o'clock stating my plan is in proper state, right? So that will give you more confidence. So we always recommend the customers to run regular pre-checks so that you know your plan is in a proper state. And in case if something happens wrong, then your plan will run successfully. Okay, so these are resources which I mentioned, right? Again, we have bunch of resources, right? So we create a lot of playlists in YouTube, we create a lot of tutorials. So I always recommend to get started with this playlist, right? And again, this hands-on Landsop, which I showed you, is super easy to use. So in case if you're looking to get started, I would recommend to use this hands-on lab to get getting, kind of hands-on to our service. And also we have a GitHub repo which you can refer. So we publish all the user-defined regularly used scripts, right? So in case if you want to reuse the script, you could refer this repo and then take advantage. And also we have a public Slack channel. So in case if you use Slack quite often for your in your work, Then we have a workspace, which is Oracle developers, and we have a channel for full stack DR. So myself and other PMs will regularly monitor where you can get in check, like in case if you're seeing some errors or something, right? This would be the best place to ask, and we can instantly help you out. Right. So I think that's it, right? I know like we have an hour, but I just packaged to show all the aspects from full stack DR, right? Like what are the challenges customers facing, like what are the benefits, and like how you can get started. And also I've showed you a quick demo. But again, like if you need a specific deep dive on specific applications or something, right? Then we could do a deep dive in future sessions. Zaid,
Yeah, we let's have Suraj moving forward. Can we can have one any packaged application, either Oracle e-business suite or Siebel. I can help you on that to secure any one environment, so that we can have like a session, a real workshop where we can demonstrate the capabilities of OCA full stack.
yeah, absolutely. I'm very happy. Any questions? I don't see any questions in the chat. Maybe if you have a few minutes, if someone has, we can do it in.
Yeah, guys, if you have any questions or any further information is needed on the OCA full stack, then do please ask.
I will just paste in my email ID. So if you have anything in
Suraj,
future,
from
just
my
reach out.
side, from my end, one question: is there any reporting or something we can get it specific to the link utilization between the uh, both sides?
Uh, what exactly? Maybe I didn't
Uh,
understand.
let me explain you again. We have like we just provided one application, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we have like 15 to 20 applications, can
Mm-hmm.
we identify which application is utilizing how much bandwidth?
Uh, Bandwidth in terms of what? Mm.
Replication between the sites.
Oh, okay. Yeah, again, that is uh, here we don't have. I mean, we are currently working on a dashboard to provide. So currently, what we do, like maybe I will show here, right? So what we do here is this is what we do in terms of overall dashboard. So we basically provide a mapping. Hey, this is my primary DR production group standby to next flow. So we are coming up something in future to provide all the plan executions and everything from a single pane of glass here, irrespective of the plan. Right? So that is something we are doing here.
Uh-huh.
But the overall replication, I mean, I don't know, like because the service is huge, right? Like what we can do, we're thinking about. But as of today, you could go to the respective service and see the bandwidth. Right? So, example, if you go here, so let's say if you're using base DB, right? You could
Database service,
directly
okay.
jump it. Yeah, database service, you can see how much I mean lag you have in terms of your data get replication, right? So that is something you can do it from the core services itself. We are just jumping there directly. So here we have an option to see the data guard association. So it will tell you this is my apply lag for my data guard, right? So similarly, you could use the core file storage or the block storage to see the bandwidth or whatever the lag between the services, right? But as of today, we don't have directly this visible from the full stack layer, but this is something we are considering to have it in future. But even today, you could do that, but you need to go through the respective services to find out these details.
Okay, perfect, perfect.
Again, this service is really flexible, right? Like whatever I talked about, it's a third-party application you can consider, but you could add all your Oracle applications or any application, even non-Oracle database, right? Because we have customers who use run Postgres in IaaS VM, or even they are leveraging, let's say, MySQL or SQL Server database in IaaS. Right? So if you know the recovery process for that, like then you could simply tap in a user-defined plan group and use those scripts to recover those databases, right? So this is super flexible, right? We don't mandate you just need to use Oracle database or Oracle application because we know a lot of customers run multiple non-Oracle applications and also non-Oracle database in OCI. So
Yeah,
you could use those as well. and then integrate with our service.
See, one more question from the firewall perspective. If the current firewall rules are configured with the primary site, so
Mhm.
how is it going to work with the when we switch over the whole application to the DR or another region?
Yeah. So there are two things, right? So example, if you are leveraging OCI DNS, right? We have a DNS in OCI. So if you are leveraging OCI DNS, then you could currently we don't have a member type which is coming up soon, but you could simply add a user-defined group to update your DNS records to point it to a new load balancer, right? So that is something you can easily do. Right? So
Okay.
again, all you need to do is simple CLI commands which can update the necessary OCI services where we don't have a member type, right? But that is easily possible.
Okay.
And again, we have a lot of tutorials for PeopleSoft application, Analytics Cloud, Integration Cloud. We are currently working for e-business suite, so that is coming up in next few weeks. So we have a bunch of step-by-step documentation for even integrating all those applications which I mentioned. So right, so if you have something, if you're related, maybe I in the resource section I have it, but if you're looking something else, maybe if it's not available, then you could ping me in Slack or LinkedIn. I'm happy to help you guys.
Yeah, Suraj, thank you. Thanks for your time. Any other questions? You can reach out to Suraj. He provided already his email address or LinkedIn. LinkedIn also you have shared, right, Suraj?
Yeah, LinkedIn, I'm super active. So you could just search Suraj Ramesh Oracle in LinkedIn. My profile
Okay,
will be there.
okay, perfect. So, guys, you can reach out to Suraj on LinkedIn or Slack or any way you feel comfortable. And Suraj, looking forward to have another session for any one packaged application with Oracle
Yeah,
to
yeah,
have a
absolutely. As I
further.
mentioned, like e-business is so popular. We are creating one tutorial right now as we speak. So it should be out in maybe next few weeks. Maybe once that is publicly available, we could do a session, right? So that people can refer the link also while we speak.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay, Suraj, thanks for your time. Thanks everyone for joining this session. Looking
Okay,
forward
thank you.
to have you in another session.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you, thank you. Take care. Bye bye.